Welcome back to the Banners broadcast. I'm Chris Grenham, and with me, as always, founder, CEO, CLNS Media, Nick Gelso. Nick, what's going on, man?
Yo, Chris, what's up? The Celtics 2 games in the bucket, 1-1.
That's right, 1-1. Finally, we're underway. There's been plenty of reactions, plenty of overreactions. We got an Al Horford injury. We got a Gershon Yabusele game-winning bucket. We got kind of a lot to unfold and kind of pick apart here. But let's keep in mind that it is just the preseason, so let's not
don't get too excited.
Let's not get too excited. But give me your immediate reactions here. We had game one on Friday. The Celtics lost at Chapel Hill at the Dean Dome. They lost 104-97, but then they came back last night. We're recording this on Monday morning. They came back last night to win a close one, 115-112 against Charlotte. So what are your immediate reactions from those first couple games?
Quick reactions, Chris. The offense looks very good. The defense looks subpar.
I think Brad Stevens would agree with you.
I think he's been extremely frustrated with the defense because we know this team is a good defensive team.
Right.
And I think it's a matter of adjustments, and you're bringing back Kyrie. Kyrie's not the best defender, but he does give it effort. Gordon is an underrated defender, and you saw on Sunday night that chase down block was kind of reminiscent of LeBron, if you want to go that far, with the guy who just fixed his foot.
Yeah, that was a pretty impressive play, and we'll get to Hayward a little bit later in the episode. But I mean, that is, a chase down block is, I don't want to say a reckless play, but it's a play where you have to be pretty reliant on your body. So it was good to see Hayward be able to do that, and he said post game last night that it was basically just instinct, which is good. The fact that he's going through some of this stuff, not really thinking about it, and obviously a lot of that mental stuff is going to take a little while. But like you mentioned, he was pretty good on defense. Terry Rozier was active on the defensive end as
he was
well.
Great on offense too.
Yeah, so that depth is coming through. But last week at training camp, Stevens was asked if he thought the defense was developing well, and he replied simply no. So no. I don't think he's too happy with it, and he didn't seem too happy with it again last night. But again, that's why it's the preseason, and so we'll get going. But while we're on the Gordon Hayward topic, let's stick with him and Kyrie. Obviously, they're both recovering from some pretty major injuries here. And Gordon has said multiple times it's going to take some time for him to shake off the rust. But Kyrie, on the other hand, has looked pretty good, particularly in the beginning of the first game on Friday night. So how do you think those guys have looked in their first early returns?
Gordon aside, because it's hard to appraise a guy after a major injury 2 games back. This is a whole new team for him. He never played really a minute with these guys.
Right.
Where Kyrie, he looks confident. He's attacking the basket. He's, launching jump shots. He just looks terrific. 20 points on Sunday. And the thing I like about Kyrie too is he's got that off the court. He really is focused in on praising his teammates, and the leadership role has been, phenomenal. And particularly Robert Williams last night, he just gushed over him, which was nice. And so Kyrie looks great, I think.
Yeah, and it was nice. He logged 29 minutes last night, which was pretty impressive. He said after the game that he basically looked at Brad Stevens in the third quarter and said, let me finish this one out, and then he kind of docked in his day off on Tuesday against Cleveland. So we won't be seeing Kyrie Irving on Tuesday night, but we'll be seeing him later on in the week when they travel to Cleveland to face the Cavaliers on Saturday. But again, you talk about Kyrie praising his teammates, and a lot of that has to do with the depth that this team has. And obviously, Celtics fans have heard it all offseason. This is probably one of the deepest Celtics teams ever. It's, in my opinion, the deepest team by far in the NBA. And we saw a lot of rotations last night where you'd have Terry Rozier on the court alongside Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward, which is, 3 guys who can be the primary ball handler and run the offense. And I think that gives a coach like Brad Stevens a lot of flexibility, and it's dangerous for a mastermind, kind of like him, or like a genius, as Kyrie Irving called him. So what do you see with those 3 guys out on the court, and what do you think that really kind of opens up for this team going?
It opens up Brad Stevens to be able to be in basketball heaven. The dude just loves that. He loves the flexibility. He loves small ball. They play a lot of small ball on Sunday.
Yeah.
And, that lineup, they're fast, they move. Even with Kyrie, maybe a little bit not the best defender of the 3, but the 2 good defenders. Rozier is coming off the bench like chucking like he's Vinnie Johnson, or going back, I'm bringing back names, but or Eddie House back in the day. He's just chucking up shots. So it gives Brad Stevens the flexibility, and it makes other teams change their lineup, which I think is Yeah, I think that then you get your opponents playing your game, and I think that's a lot of what happened Sunday night. The Celtics trailed a bunch of that game, and then they put it in their style play, made the Hornets change, and you saw the difference.
Right, and with that flexibility comes, last year Kyrie Irving obviously didn't have Gordon Hayward alongside of him, and a lot of people don't realize that when he was in Utah, Hayward played a lot as the primary ball handler there.
Right.
And so last night, when he has the ball at the top of the key and he drives into the paint and draws 2 or 3 defenders towards him, he can kick out and Kyrie can have a nice open 3, which he didn't have as much last year because defenders weren't being drawn to someone like Gordon Hayward. And then you add in someone like Terry Rozier into the equation, who's also a primary ball handler who can score the ball and clearly run the offense as we saw last season. It's a really dangerous combination. And it showed on the defensive end too, because they've got that perimeter defense kind of locked in, and Terry and Gordon specifically had those active hands on the ball. So it was great to see, and again, like you said, it's basketball heaven for a coach like Brad Stevens, and it's dangerous.
Fans also have to realize, Chris, too, that Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, this is a whole new team, but Kyrie Irving is getting Rozier and Tatum and Brown.
Yeah.
Okay, they were good all last season, but in Kyrie's absence is where they really stepped up. Rozier, Tatum, and Brown became the primary guys. And now, so Kyrie's coming into a game where his roster is the guys alongside of him are way more advanced than they were, say, prior to March when Kyrie went down last year. I mean, those guys just blossomed in the playoffs.
Completely.
And if you look at the Celtics 1 through 6 or 7, I mean, probably Brown is the only guy that cannot initiate the offense without us all going, fearing a turnover.
Right.
But everybody else, including Al Horford, could initiate the offense. They could move the ball. They all spread the court. I mean, again, this is heaven for Brad Stevens.
Right, and it's an absolute matchup nightmare for opposing coaches. And you look at a guy, you mentioned Jason Tatum. So he got off to kind of a slow start last night in the Celtics' second preseason game on Sunday night, but then he went through this crazy stretch in the second quarter where I think he scored 13 points in like 3 minutes, and that's the thing that you can unlock that kind of scoring so quickly, and it can come from anybody. So I think that's going to be a theme kind of throughout this season, is that every night it's going to be someone different, whether it's a quick stretch like that from Tatum, whether it's Marcus Morris coming off the bench and having 20, or Terry Rozier doing the same. They're so deep that the points are going to be coming from everyone in different nights, and I think that really makes it a brutal matchup for other teams, and it really opens it up for Brad Stevens. I know I'm being repetitive there, but it really does.
Not to come full circle here, but it also shows when you have guys like Kyrie rooting for his teammates. When a guy like Kyrie, who had a reputation of being, a ball dominant chucker, he now is praising and wanting his teammates to score and get touches, and that culture of selflessness can spread so quickly that the rest of the Eastern Conference better watch out, because if you start getting that passing machine going, there are so many options. We're gonna have a lot of fun watching this team this year, Chris.
Yeah.
And one other thing, you mentioned Tatum. I swear to God, we were sitting together in the press box. I think we both just tweeted out Tatum 0 for 5 from the field, or 0 for 6 from the field,
right.
And then he goes on that run. And it was again, preseason game, but it was reminiscent of some of the runs he went on in the playoffs. And it's been oversaid, but I can't even think about Jason Tatum's future because I get so excited.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, and he looked good for that stretch last night. And some of that Kobe work in the offseason was showing off early. He was taking a couple dribbles in and settling for those long twos. So maybe a little Kobe there. We'll see if Brad Stevens tries to shake that off of him. I'm sure he will. But you mentioned Kyrie talking about his teammates and kind of playing the role of a cheerleader. We heard a lot about that during the playoff run when he was out, and he's been talking a lot about his teammates in the press scrums and in the locker room after some of these games. What did you think about the bench unit last night? I mean, obviously BWA has kind of taken on a mind of its own, and it's kind of gained a lot of traction.
It's kind of getting overdone.
It is a little bit. But
we're part of it. I can't say we're not part of it.
We are. I'm definitely a proponent of that.
Now.
It's but again, that's a deep lineup, and they looked pretty good last night. Again, it's preseason, so we're seeing a much deeper bench rotation than we normally would. You have Robert Williams with a game-saving block, and then Gershon Yabusele with the game-winning bucket. So I doubt we'll be seeing that in the regular season. But what do you think about those guys?
Maybe up in Maine.
yeah, that's true. Hey, if you're up in northern New England, make it to a Maine Red Claws game
this
season, because they're going to have a good lineup and they're going to have some fun rotations this year. So that's going to be a good team to watch if you're a G League fan. But what do you think about the bench guys?
I mean, you could go back to years past where you'd say, oh no, Doc has to sub or Stevens has to sub. This year, I don't really. There's so many different combinations they could put together, or they could just go flat A/B lineup. And you saw it last night where they're not going to lose a lead. Now, you mentioned it in the video segments we did after the game on Friday, is that, you do worry about touches. Are they going to come into the game and everybody's just going to be launching shots to get their points in? Maybe initially, but that's really the only concern I have about that bench unit. Last year, with Morris being injured to start, of course, Gordon going down or game one, the bench thinned out pretty quick, and Stevens will be forced to play combinations, including the starting lineup, which you'll see him do this year too. But there was no real differentiation between the first and second unit.
Right.
This year, I think there's going to be, and I think it gives him so much confidence and comfort to be able to rest guys like Gordon, Kyrie, and Al, who, by God, I mean, he better, and he's good at this, but he better manage minutes going into the postseason, because the Celtics need all three of those guys, not just to compete with Golden State, but to, first of all, get out of the Eastern Conference.
Right, full gear, right. Yeah. And again, there's depth in ways that they can do that, starting guys like Baines and Morris for games. I'm sure we're going to see most of that. They did run small the last couple nights. They'll run small a majority of the time this season, but in matchups against teams like Philadelphia, I'm sure we'll see Aaron Baines get some starts, as he's been a pretty good matchup against Joel Embiid, and it'll vary. But the nice thing is,
you love Philly,
as we've don't get me started there. Don't get me started on Ben Simmons and Philly. That's a whole nother episode for. We'll get around that on opening day. You'll hear plenty from me in that regard. Changing gears a little bit, it's kind of been talked about a lot on social media, and we were there last night to see it. We've got new lighting at the TD Garden, and it sounds like kind of a lame thing to talk about, but it's completely noticeable. So what the Garden did is they're now going with the theater lighting, which is, if any of you have been to Staples Center or Madison Square Garden, it's the dark in the cavernous areas of the stands are darker and the court is more illuminated. So if you're sitting up top, you can really notice the difference where the stands are pretty dark and the court is very bright. I thought last night when we were sitting up top in the halo that the court looked really good. I thought it looked very cool, and I didn't really notice it in terms of watching it on a TV feed later on that night. But when you look at the press photos from USA Today and Getty Images and what have you, you can tell the difference for sure. It looks very different. So, did you like the lighting last night? What did you think about the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was noticeable the minute I walked into the arena. Yep. I mean, down on floor level, it's very noticeable.
Yeah.
I didn't think in the halo. I mean, besides the fact that the halo being the press box, besides the fact that the court is really illuminated more so than ever, I still think you could see the fans. I'm mixed on this, man, because I'm an old school fan. I love the Bruins yellow seats. They remind me of the old Garden. Mm-hmm. I think part of the Garden is the fact that, or what makes it special, is the fact that you could see the fans.
Right.
We thought maybe it was a league. We did a segment on this following the game last night, a video segment. We thought maybe it was the league making everybody do this, but I saw from Clevis from the Athletic that no, it's not a league thing. So the Boston Celtics and the Bruins had decided, or maybe just the Bruins because they own the building, they decided this is what they want to do. And I'll get used to it, and I think it looks gorgeous, but it does take. I said last night that Toscano, every arena has its own personality in the NBA, and it does take some of that personality away from the Garden. But I mean, look at the outside, man. I mean,
the outside of the Garden, I know it looks completely different.
It's so different.
Yeah.
I was almost like took a double take. Like, where am I now? The sides still look the same, but the front is totally different. And, it sounds like a funny thing for us to talk about, but I think it's relevant because a lot of our listeners are outside of the Boston area. Some of them outside of the country have never been to Boston Garden. So,
right.
Yeah, though I'm curious to see what it looks like on TV.
Yeah, I am.
You said you saw it.
I watched a little bit of some highlights through the NBA stats site last night, and I could notice the difference a little bit, but more so when they were changing cameras, panning onto the court and from the court level. I couldn't really tell. The court looked a little bit brighter, but nothing drastic. We Jimmy Toscano asked Kyrie about it post game last night, and he said he didn't mind it. He couldn't really tell the difference. Obviously when he looks up in the stands, he said he did when he immediately got onto the court, and he couldn't see any of the fans. He compared it to a football stadium, kind of with the ring of lights up top, and then just shining down, you can't see any of the fans. He said he would like to see some of the fans, but in terms of their play, it doesn't really impact the players. He did say, however, if he has a poor shooting night, he might reference back to it and maybe blame it on the new lighting. But I think he framed it in a very Kyrie answer as saying, it's more like a performance, and we're here to perform.
We know Kyrie likes that.
For the fans. Yeah, and he liked it, so it was kind of an interesting take on his part. But
you gotta love Toscano. I mean, he always asks the question that no one really thinks of asking. I think he always asks kind of off-color questions, and the players love it because I think they're tired of hearing, "So how do you feel? How's the knee?" That kind of stuff. So,
exactly.
And you saw Kyrie kind of light up when he was talking about it, and it is different, man. I mean, I'm a lifelong Celtics fan, so I guess it's going to take some getting used to, because it reminds me of, yes, Madison Square Garden and probably Barclays, Staples, but really reminds me of the old Forum and even the Spectrum in Philadelphia, and those are dreaded places for old school Celtics fans. So we'll see how it turns around. I mean, it does look theatrical.
It does completely. It does, and I think that is the goal. And I'm sure there are some sort of I'm sure there's a list of benefits for whether it be cameras or photographers or that sort of thing. But that's a real deep dive.
No question, boxing would look terrific in there now.
Boxing would, because it has that like MGM Grand sort of look with the dark stands. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool. But I'm sure you'll begin to notice it as the season goes on for those of you watching on TV. And when you take your first trip of the year to TD Garden, you will notice it. And maybe that will be on Tuesday. So Tuesday night is the next Celtics preseason game 3 of 4 on the schedule. So they go back-to-back against Cleveland. They go Tuesday at 8 o'clock, and then Saturday at 7:30, and then it's until October 16th will be the home opener. Long break. It's the front-loaded preseason schedule. We did mention earlier, just a quick update on Al Horford. He's not concerned about his wrist. It said he hurt it at some point in the first quarter of Friday night's game. Didn't feel too great last night, and so he thought he'd give it a rest. He said he'll be good to go on Tuesday. So,
and if you notice, I mean, Al in that first quarter in particular, he was pretty bad on Friday night. I think he had like 2 or 3 turnovers.
A couple times, yeah.
Yeah, he was bobbling the ball, so the wrist was definitely hurting him. But you got to love Al. I mean, he's always available pregame, and good update. He'll be there Tuesday. I don't know if we'll see Gordon. We know Kyrie's not going to be there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Gordon.
I kind of think we won't.
But again, maybe they do want to get him some reps to try and get him back into full game shape and mentally in game shape. But he did play a decent amount of minutes the last 2 nights, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him like Kyrie.
Anyway, Chris, we're powered today. We have a sponsor.
Powered.
Yeah, man. We got Power 1 in 100. It's a brand new way to get involved in sports and concert events. Boston sports fans, they can get killer seats to see Celtics, Bruins, Patriots, or Red Sox for the price of a beer or even a large pizza. It could even be less, Chris. People are tired of paying inflated broker prices for tickets, and now with 1 in 100
fees, rightfully so.
Oh, dude. I mean, how about when they? Never mind. I'm not going to backstop it. But go to 1in100.co. That's 1in100.co. ONEIN, the number 1, the number 0, the number 0 dot. CO. Now, how are you going to forget that? That's a unique URL. And there, the novelty in 1 in 100, you'll know, is that there's no other place online that's doing online raffles for tickets and sporting events like they are. It's a totally brand new way to get involved, try to get tickets to concerts, sporting events, even to our Celtics. So the cost potentially to score tickets with 1 in 100 is a small fraction of the actual ticket price. Score a pair of tickets for less than the cost of a beer. Your first raffle ticket is free after sign up. So, dude, you could even get into these games or concerts for free. I'm in the Elton John raffle right now because I cannot believe they're charging $300 for balcony seats at TD Garden. That's crazy. So I got in the raffle for I think $6. at 1-in-100. So go over, experience it. It's really fun and it's exciting. You can pick your own number, get the feeling of potentially scoring premium tickets. If you're feeling lucky, go on over to 1in100.co. That's ONEIN, the number 1, the number 0, the number 0.co. Dude, they have been all over our programming, a really good partner of ours. So if you're a fan of the Banners broadcast or any CLNS programming, please check them out.
Check them out.
1in100.co.
Check them out. And it could be extremely useful this season with high demand for Celtics tickets going forward. Obviously, the Celtics are one of the best teams in the NBA this year, so tickets will not be
Dude, you know what Miriam told me last night?
What?
Is that they are selling the Halo more so than ever to fans. That's how much in demand Celtics tickets are and how sold out they are. I mean, they are by far, talking to PR, Celtics PR, I mean, right now the enthusiasm around this team is incredible. And though we did not see it on Sunday night, you saw it on media day with even the national media attention. Right. We're going to see it all season long.
I'm gonna be honest. Last night at the Garden, towards the end of that game, it was pretty loud in the Garden.
Yeah, it was.
It was pretty loud. And the game-tying bucket and that last 3-minute stretch where it was a real back and forth, I was very impressed by the half-filled Garden with the enthusiasm. And again, the fans
they're waiting
Celtics
for this chance.
Team. Yeah, I know, and you rarely see that during a preseason game. So I was pretty impressed with the preseason crowd. But again, it's just leading towards October 16th, which everyone has been waiting for, I feel like, since late June. It's just slowly but surely crawling, but we're right there. We're 16 days away. We're so close. And Nick, we'll be there tomorrow night at the Garden.
Yeah, man. And you'll be at practice today.
I'll be at practice today, so we'll have you covered at CLNS Media, at Celtics Blog. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Grenham. You can follow Nick at CLNS_Nick. And
That's
Nick,
me.
I'll see you tomorrow night at the Garden, man.
Yeah, man. Game time, 8 p.m.
Let's do it.